Nano world of noise, we seek the silent echoes. We've all heard the fables, the legends whispered through time, of brave heroes, monstrous beasts, and cities swallowed whole by the sea. But what if these stories are not fables at all? What if they are corrupted historical records, fragments of a forgotten past waiting to be decoded? Join us as we use modern science to unlock ancient mysteries. This is a place where we challenge the myths we thought we knew, not with magic, but with data. For 1,000 years, the legend of the city of Ys has been a lesson in morality. It was a place of impossible beauty and sinful excess, a city that stood defiant against the sea. They said its destruction was an act of divine retribution, a punishment for the hubris of its people. The story was simple. A wicked princess, Dahut, in a moment of debauchery, unlocked the sea gate's key, allowing the ocean to swallow the city and its inhabitants whole. The fable was taught to children and whispered by sailors, a simple moral tale. But history, like the sea, can be deceptive, and a closer look at the fragments of the past reveals a far more complex and heartbreaking truth. What if the key wasn't a physical object, and the flood wasn't an act of God? The first clue to the truth was a linguistic anomaly found buried in the oldest Breton manuscripts, a tattered, lead-bound codex that predated the more common Christianized versions of the myth. In these original tales, the word for key wasn't a metal object at all. The word Allen carried a dual meaning, translating both to key and, more obscurely, to note or frequency. The meticulously documented work of an AI, which deconstructed and analyzed thousands of ancient dialects, revealed a network of these double meanings. The mythical storm didn't rage with wind and rain, but was described with phrases that felt profoundly out of place, like, "The ground sang a terrible song," and "The waves moved to a forgotten beat." These were not the words of a divine flood, but of a geological event, a language of vibration and resonance that had been lost and misinterpreted over time. As these linguistic revelations emerged, they were cross-referenced with real-world data. Scientists, using modern sonar technology and deep-sea core samples, found evidence of a massive prehistoric submarine landslide off the coast, dated to a period that aligns perfectly with the legend. The sheer scale of the displacement would have been unimaginable, an event powerful enough to generate a catastrophic, low-frequency infrasonic wave. It would have been a silent, powerful vibration that traveled through the earth and water, a sound felt by the very stones of the city, a deep, resonant hum that animals would have fled from and people would have felt in their bones long before the first wave arrived. This led to the most profound discovery. The city of Ys was a masterpiece of sonic architecture. King Gradlon, far from being a pious fool, was a brilliant engineer who designed the city not out of hubris, but out of necessity. Built at sea level in a naturally protected bay, the city relied on a sophisticated system of giant resonant crystals and subterranean chambers. These structures were meticulously calibrated to generate a constant, protective sonic barrier that pushed the tides back, allowing the city to exist where it should not have been. It was a marvel of ancient technology, a triumph of human ingenuity against the unceasing forces of nature. The key that unlocked the sea gate was not a physical tool, but a master frequency that controlled this intricate network, a secret held by the royal line. This changes everything. Princess Dahut was not a sinful villain, but a brilliant, dedicated custodian of this technology. A skilled engineer who had spent her life mastering the intricate system of frequencies. The key wasn't to betray the city, but to recalibrate the system in a catastrophic emergency. On the fateful night, it was not revelry that filled the air, but the frantic, desperate scramble of survival. The incoming infrasonic wave from the submarine landslide was too powerful, too low frequency for their system to handle. Dahoud's action wasn't an act of malice, it was a desperate last-ditch attempt to save her people by generating a counter-frequency. She was trying to fight a natural disaster with technology, to match the chaotic hum of the Earth with a perfect counter-vibrating note. Her corrective measures failed. The two waves, natural and technological, clashed, creating a feedback loop of destructive resonance. The sound that followed was not a roar, but a silent scream that shattered the very air. The city's own protective barrier became the instrument of its ruin, a symphony of destruction that liquefied the ground beneath the buildings and pulled the entire city into the sea. The crystalline structures, meant to save them, pulsed with a destructive energy, causing the foundations to crumble and the spires to snap. It was an instant, horrifying descent, a technological and geological catastrophe that no one could have comprehended. The myth of the key and the sinner wasn't a lie. It was the only way a grieving, technologically illiterate population could process an incomprehensible catastrophe. The story of a brave princess, a brilliant engineer, and a magnificent city was too complex and tragic. It was easier to understand and to process the trauma of the loss by ascribing it to divine punishment, by placing the blame on a single human flaw rather than on a natural disaster and the tragic failure of a technology that was far ahead of its time. And so, the true story of Ys was lost, a silent memory waiting to be heard, its truth buried under the waves and in the words of a fable.